Welcome to Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Well, it's election time here in New Mexico. You're saying, what? Of course, when is it not election time? Well, it's election time. Here in Albuquerque, we're going to be voting for mayor and a number of city council seats. And of course, across the whole state, there's a number of elections, municipal elections. It's not for president this year and not for governor, but still very important. And on the program today, I have Paul Gessing, who is a frequent guest on Issues and Answers, to talk about what's at stake in Albuquerque with this mayoral race. We know that Tim Keller, our current mayor, is running for his third, I think, unprecedented term, and there are a number of other candidates as well. And here in Issues and Answers, we have invited all the candidates. Those who have accepted our invitation will be introduced to you, our audience, on Issues and Answers in KCHF TV. But today, Paul Gessing is here to share his thoughts with the Rio Grande Foundation, what is at stake, and also talk about what they have online that you can find, and I found as well, that helps me ask questions of these candidates, is their mayoral survey. You can take a look at that online. And we're also going to be talking about how our economic freedom is declining. That's in case we have enough time on this show. I'll be back with Paul Gessing with the Rio Grande Foundation right after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Paul Gessing, again, the president of the Rio Grande Foundation. As you should know, and I should know, the mission of the Rio Grande Foundation is to increase liberty and prosperity for all New Mexicans by informing citizens, and that's what we're doing on this program today, the importance of our individual freedom, limited government, and economic opportunity. They sound like a mouthful, but when you think about it, do you even know that your freedom is being limited? I mean, do you even realize it? What about limited government? I mean, if you pay taxes, we're blowing up our national government. We're trying to limit that. But of course, here in the city of Albuquerque, in the state of New Mexico, and of course, what about economic opportunity for your kids, probably, your kids and your grandkids? Okay, Paul, that's what we find online about the Rio Grande Foundation. You do a lot of research at the Rio Grande Foundation, and my hat's off to you for keeping us informed. You're on this program. We thank you for sharing your time. And also, you're on a number of other media outlets. And I listen to you and learn a lot, and I'm glad to have you back in our studios.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here and happy to talk about some of the issues at stake here at the city level in this November's election. And that election could be two elections because in the city of Albuquerque, we now have runoff elections. So with 7 candidates for mayor, there's a very high likelihood that nobody wins 50+1% of the vote. They will likely have a runoff with the top 2 performers in that initial election there on November 4th. So I think,
and we don't have a primary.
Right.
Well, we didn't have a primary.
It's not a partisan election, so you can't have a primary. You can't have a primary in a nonpartisan election. That's one of the other unique features. Not so unique in municipal elections across the country. It's fairly common, actually, that you don't have an official party label. Now, people generally have an idea who the Republican or the more conservative and the more progressive are. Those become obvious when you really start to get information about the candidates out there. And we hope that people are informed and that they go to the polls in presumably both elections, because municipal elections do tend to be lower turnout than, certainly presidential, even off-cycle elections. We need to get people in Albuquerque out to vote, and that includes a prospective runoff election.
Paul, it's not a presidential election. It's not a gubernatorial election. So the turnout is a bit lower. It's mayor, I think a number of city council seats, I think some school board seats. Yeah. Now, were these always in November, or did they used to be, I think in Santa Fe they used to be in March when nobody turned out?
Yes, they traditionally were in March, and I won't get into the reasons for them, but there was a change made during the time of Governor Susana Martinez with the Democrat legislature. They worked together. They got legislation that was signed during the Martinez administration to change to allow that change. Now, not all cities have made that change. Rio Rancho's a place that, for example, still has the March municipal elections.
Okay.
So it is confusing, and of course, you always get into, well, I live in Los Ranchos, or I live in an unincorporated area near Albuquerque. Why don't I get to vote? Well, you're not paying taxes, you're not in the city, so you don't get to vote in the city election. So it is something. So
it's not that big. I mean, it's just the city, again, the city council, school board, and that's it. So people may not even know there's an election coming up.
Oh, and the kicker is that school board and city are not necessarily the same, because APS's jurisdiction transcends the city of Albuquerque, because kids in the East Mountains are part of APS as well. So it is very confusing. There's not a whole heck of a lot that you can do about it at this point.
Except for vote.
You got to vote, absolutely.
Vote to know. I mean, we're here to tell you there is an election coming up.
Yes.
And the Rio Grande Foundation, and we all know there is a lot at stake.
Yeah, and so we sent out candidate surveys for all of the mayoral candidates and city council candidates, a 10-question survey. It's relatively straightforward. Some of the questions are yes and no, but we did want to give the candidates an opportunity to share on what I believe are some of the really, really important issues facing voters. All of these are important, but when you talk about crime, everybody says, I'm going to be tough on crime. That's straightforward. But what are you actually intending to do on the crime issue in the city of Albuquerque? Homelessness. How would you expand our housing supply? Those are three of the, you could call them essay questions, or give people a little bit more room to discuss the issues.
We like it because you say it in a sentence or two. We like the yes or no because I've looked at this. I'm going to use it when I interview the mayoral candidates who have agreed to come on the show. You're just basically, it's easy. It's easy for us. 10 questions with 2 essays. So it's simple. You can find it on the Rio Grande Foundation website.
Yeah.
And to find out, and we want to know yes or no. We want to hear. We don't want to say, well.
Yeah, well, there are yes and no's, like, will you raise the minimum wage? If so, what would that wage be? That's, of course, a relevant question. Things like...
Pledge to oppose any and all city tax increases while you're in office.
Exactly. The budget's gone up dramatically. Mayor Keller's been in office for, really 8 years. So that's another feature of this election, is that Keller's trying for a third term, which is kind of, I don't want to say taboo, but it's unusual. Presidents are elected to 2 terms as the executive of our country. In Trump's case, that's 4 years, then 4 years of Biden, then 4 years of Trump. But that's the way it goes at the presidential level. It is something that people are going to have to decide for themselves. Do they want a third term mayor, a third 4 years for Mayor Keller?
Now, for president, it's not allowed 3 terms. 3
Correct.
terms is not.
That's by the Constitution.
3 terms, 3 at all, but
2 is it. Yeah,
2 is it. But for the city of Albuquerque, there's nothing that does.
And there was an effort to during the Marty Chavez administration that city council wanted to do term limits. Marty Chavez basically, I think it was illegal or some kind of way that he said, no, this does not apply. And Marty Chavez did have more than 3 terms. I don't remember if those were consecutive or not, but the point remains that Keller is on the ballot. There are 2 what I would call progressives on the ballot, Keller and Andrew Ubaez. Ubaez is former U.S. attorney under Joe Biden for this area, and he has approached the issues from a very progressive mindset. In some ways, I guess you could argue that he's to the left of Keller, but I would say that Ubaez is also working to enact many of the same policies as Tim Keller, maybe with his own spin on it, but without the baggage of what I think a lot of people are saying when you talk to folks around Albuquerque, that crime and homelessness have grown out of control under Mayor Keller, and a lot of people can take issues, as I have, with a lot of the approaches of the Keller administration. Ubaez is kind of, in my estimation, a lot of more of the same as Keller, but without some of the baggage because he's not been in that office before. So those are the 2 what I would call status quo or progressives.
Oh, I thought you said Keller plus 2 more.
No, Keller and Ubaez.
Okay.
Those are the 2 that are really the progressive wing. And then there's a total of 7 candidates. The other 5 are broadly speaking, you could call them center or center-right, a diverse array of people. You know, I'm going to maybe miss a name or two, but Darren White, former Bernalillo County Sheriff, long political track record, known to be a part of the Republican Party. Daniel Chavez, whose company owns a lot of parking lots in town. You've got Mayling Armijo, who did economic development both in Bernalillo County and Sandoval County. Eddie Varela, former firefighter, union guy, and then Luis Sanchez, who is a city councilor on the west side.
I think Patrick Size?
Size is not on the ballot. I think there's just a total of 7, if I'm not mistaken.
And Aldona Dare is a write-in candidate as well.
Write-in candidate, yeah.
Well, I think Patrick Size might be.
Okay, well, I could be wrong.
Okay. So what is at stake for the city?
Well, the future of the city of Albuquerque.
Is that all? Is that all?
That's it.
That's it.
You know, and I hate to say it, but R.J. Berry had some issues with policing, and we got under the DOJ. We're finally coming out from under the DOJ in a consent decree, and that is something that should help whoever the next mayor is focus resources and police officers on actually addressing crime. I have my concerns about Mayor Keller and Ubaez in terms of whether they're going to do what's necessary to enforce the law. And of course, it's a balance. You want to respect people's constitutional rights and enforce the law. And of course, the homeless situation, while it's not directly crime specific, you know, you get pushback. You say, well, you know, being homeless itself is not a crime, but there are a lot of issues around homelessness.
Well, I know some friends, homeless people were encamping in front of their business and set their business on fire. Yeah. Right over on I-40 in Coors. Yeah. And it's a medical office. They had to be, their patients couldn't see the doctors couldn't earn their income, and of course, their building was destroyed.
Well, there was a laundromat off of Central that was destroyed in a fire. There's been fires in the Bosque, and while it's not necessarily reported widely, it's widely expected and known that those are fires set by homeless individuals. It makes doing business harder when you have people camping out in front of your place of business. My foundation is based in downtown Albuquerque, so we see the homeless situation firsthand. And I believe that, yes, it is something that the city should be more aggressive on, certainly on the medians, taking on the ACLU, fighting back, not just saying, oh, the ACLU is going to sue us, and so we're going to
What is President Trump doing about homelessness? And
he signed an executive order recently to essentially give the cities more authority, more ability to, broader latitude, if you will, to address the homeless situation. Of course, the U.S. Supreme Court, I want to say it was last session of the court, basically made it clear that cities have more leeway. But it's really not about the legal issues. It's about your progressive philosophies, and that is where we haven't had as aggressive of action, certainly under Mayor Keller, as a lot of folks would like. And it's not easy, and it's sometimes politically you become a lightning rod because the homeless advocates are well funded, and I think overall voters share our concerns with the situation, but it can be also very disconcerting to have a long line of people at city council meetings and opinion pieces in the paper and letters to the editor, attacking you and saying you're some kind of jackbooted fascist for dealing with the homeless situation and not letting them just camp out in parks and wherever they may be.
That you're heartless to their plight.
These are troubled people, many of them mentally ill, many of them
veterans.
Some of them veterans for sure, and also dealing with substance abuse issues. And it's not always easy or inexpensive for government to address all of their issues.
And so you, with the Rio Grande Foundation, have question number 6. In a sentence or two, describe how best to address Albuquerque's homeless situation.
Yeah.
And I have one of the candidates' response here. What have you found to be true of these candidates and what they're saying?
Well, it runs the gamut, and I think broadly speaking, the five more moderate are much more interested in taking on the issue, whereas I get the impression that Keller, and I don't know about Ubaez. He's not one of the folks.
Did they reply to your?
No.
They did not reply.
And it's not surprising. I mean, Keller's got an 8-year track record. We know where he stands. We know the flaws and what pluses he has. Ubaez, I think, is trying to step into that role, say, to the progressive voters who, we can argue whether they're a majority of the city or whether they're a significant minority, but the progressive movement is very large, and it's, I think, Ubaez's desire to step in and kind of be Keller without the baggage. That's my impression. And so,
and they're very well funded.
Ubaez was put up, to my knowledge, and put up may be a strong word, but he was recruited, if you will, by the current governor of New Mexico. So he definitely is a progressive. His wife runs the Voices for Children, New Mexico, a think tank that's kind of a rival or alternative that theoretically is supposed to be about helping poor people. In reality, they just never met a government program they didn't like. So I'm going to be interested to see how he reacts in a more public, and I hope there's some good debates and discussions. It's tough with 7 people, if you have them all up on a stage, to ask them all questions and have a coherent conversation about the issues facing Albuquerque, because there are a lot of, we had the governor, of course, call out the National Guard. I would argue that that was a bit of a political shot at Mayor Keller. So there's all this kind of politics back and forth, but she could then say, well, I'm doing something, and Keller's not doing the good job. So it's an interesting give and take there. We'll see what, assuming the runoff looks like after November 4th. But yeah,
there may be only just one televised debate, if even, it may be radio.
I certainly hope there's more.
But your questionnaire is easy to locate and find. And
Rio Grande Foundation or arrowsoфenchantment.com.
Should the city of Albuquerque remain an immigrant-friendly, quote-unquote, immigrant-friendly city that prohibits local police from enforcing federal immigration law? That's one of your questions.
Yeah, and that one's probably the most bitterly contested among the candidates. And it is not directly sanctuary city, although it kind of leads in that direction.
But I guess we're not a sanctuary.
We're not technically a sanctuary city.
But we're an immigration-friendly city.
Yeah, and that goes back to something like year 2000. So it goes back a long way beyond the Keller administration.
Okay.
You have some, what I would call relatively reasonable folks who are to the right of Keller politically, who are not in support of changing that. More of the Republican-minded folks are wanting to change that. I put it on our survey because it's an important issue, but that is not, to me, a make or break issue one way or the other. Personally, it's really all about getting the best person up there to provide an alternative on the other 9 issues that are facing New Mexico. I think it's important. It's something that highlights a candidate's views on that one issue. But I don't think it is the only issue people should focus on.
What are the other issues you're
Well, a few of them already, but project labor agreements. The city has created a law that artificially increases the price of public works projects, community centers, roads, bridges, et cetera, by essentially giving the unions the ability to set the labor rate and set the cost of that.
And how long have we had that?
It's under Keller, so it's probably like 5 or 6 years that it happened.
And again, that's making everything more expensive.
Exactly.
And then our taxes go towards that and increase that. And then what about supporting the amendment for the city charter to require a referendum before adopting future tax
Now, that's
increases?
a policy preference of the Rio Grande Foundation. We very strongly believe that we, the people, the voters, should have the right to vote up or down on any and all tax increases. You may recall that in the very early days of Keller's first term, that he came into office and immediately decided that he wanted to raise taxes. I think we got a 3/8 cent increase in the gross receipts tax. And of course, that's led to about a doubling of the city budget from $750 million to close to $1.5 billion now. And that tax increase has been a big part of that. I don't feel like the city of Albuquerque right now is showing signs of being that much better run, that we're safer. In fact, I think,
aren't we twice as good?
Yeah, most of the things have gotten worse in the city, and that includes the roads and the bridges. So we think that generally...
Is there any feeling that there could be a referendum? I mean, any city councilors who are for this? Is there much discussion about having this?
I think the right city council could and would do this. Okay. And of course, that's a part of the equation here. It's not just about the mayoral candidates. We are seeing changes and shifts in city council as well. Dane Lewis, kind of one of the stalwart Republican conservative folks on the west side, is up for election. Luis Sanchez, because he is running for mayor, cannot run for re-election in his city council district. And I would call him one of those moderates.
But has anybody proposed having a referendum before adopting?
I would have to go back. I don't have that information.
But it's something that we should be talking about.
It should have been done. Yeah, absolutely.
Again, that gives us, the voters,
and
really direct.
It's not that you can't raise taxes. It's that you would need to run it by the voters before you raise taxes. I think that's a bare minimum.
And you have a question about eliminating the city's tax-funded free bus program.
Yes.
Tell me what the problem is with that. And is it free at this point still?
Well, free is a four-letter word that has many, many meanings. It's free to people who hop on the bus, but it's not free to, of course, the taxpayers of the city of Albuquerque, nor to the federal taxpayers who subsidize it. But the city used to charge $1, and then there were passes and various other mechanisms, and seniors and all kinds of different benefits for different groups. But the average person did have to put $1 in and get on the bus that way. Well, there was a movement afoot in the city of Albuquerque. Progressives felt like that was unfair. So what happened in reality is that you have people using city buses as their getaway vehicles for retail crimes up and down Montgomery and other areas. You've seen a significant decline in safety on the buses. Now they're having to hire security officers. So I think having a baseline, even $1, which is a trivial amount of money, or even, as has been proposed, a free pass that you can pick up, that you can be identified and say, I am getting this free pass, this free bus ride, because what has happened is that there has been that deterioration of public safety. And it's just
costs
unfortunate.
Going up, especially with these security, just as we see as the businesses around town now have to hire their own security because of the crime. So of course crime is a major issue this election.
Absolutely.
And one that people like to talk about is, you have a question, should Albuquerque ban plastic bags?
Yeah, it's kind of a different issue, but
what does it say?
There's a lot of cities around New Mexico, including some conservative areas, that have banned them. Of course, Mayor Keller and City Council banned them then during COVID, because it took effect right before COVID. COVID scared a lot of people that the reusable bags were going to cause problems with COVID. It actually has issues. You know, if you have chicken, that the juices flow into that bag, then you have bacteria grow and all kinds of issues. So it's not to say that the canvas bags or other forms are particularly clean or good for the environment. They have to be washed and all this other stuff. But yeah, I think it's important to ask people running for office in the city of Albuquerque, is a plastic bag ban something you support? And I'm hoping that most of them say no. I use my bags to pick up dog poop.
I use them multiple times.
Use them for trash can liners.
Any points? Of course, we didn't get into declining economic freedom. We'll have to do that another show with you, because so much is at stake.
Sure.
We have just a few minutes left. Paul Gessing, president of the Rio Grande Foundation, a think tank looking for prosperity, economic freedom, and liberty. What else would you like to point out about what's at stake for us? And people they can't sit back. They worry about how much they're spending on items. I do as well. It's still high, but do they realize their freedoms are being eroded, and this election has consequences for us individually?
I think the city of Albuquerque has great potential. It's much like the rest of New Mexico. If it was run just a little bit better, we see Rio Rancho, which, Rio Rancho is a much newer city. It doesn't have a lot of the problems that the city of Albuquerque does, but it's an example of what can be done with just competent governance that is not always in agreement with the Rio Grande Foundation, but is in much more alignment with the kinds of things we're talking about on this survey. And Rio Rancho and Albuquerque are natural competitors. Rio Rancho's fastest growing city, often one of the top 10 in the entire country.
Good school district, good school district.
And that's a separate issue, but also on the ballot for this election. Mayor Keller and any mayor of Albuquerque really doesn't have much to say about the schools, but that is a factor, and that's on the ballot with the school board election. And I urge people to educate themselves and find out who supports accountability and reform. And I do think we're actually making some inroads in the city, in the APS district. It's a very difficult process, especially when the governor is not necessarily an advocate for real reform. But the city of Albuquerque has a great deal of potential, and we're not far away from moving that body in a better direction. I have said it for several years now. Our city council is more conservative than the legislature. That's not a high bar because our legislature is very, very progressive. But it doesn't happen very often that the largest city in the state of New Mexico, or largest city in a given state, has a more conservative city council than the legislature, because normally it's the outlying areas that vote more conservatively. The city of Albuquerque can and needs to change and improve in a lot of the ways that we survey the candidates on: economically, crime, homelessness. And I urge folks to check out the survey, check out interviews, hopefully a debate or two that happens with those folks.
Because you have a podcast as well.
Yeah, Tipping Point, New Mexico. I've had several of the candidates on. You can listen to long-form interviews that I'm doing. Of course, your interviews, which I'm sure will be fantastic and informative. And just make a good decision on Election Day. And then don't think you're done there, because chances are I'm going to go with 99%. 99% likelihood that we have a runoff.
So you're not done yet.
So show up
Do
again.
your job. These people are running. They're making an effort. Paul's making an effort. KCHF TV is making an effort to inform you. You've got an obligation to make an effort to go out and vote. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater, is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program, email us at info@kchftv.org or call us at 505-345-1991. Join us again for Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater.